Welcome back to ISA Insider News, everybody. My name is Max Tim.
And I am Shayna Weber. And the top headline this week of March 28th is the slap heard and seen around the world.
Heard and seen and felt and already criticized and thought about. And here I am laughing again. Before this, I told Shayna that I don't want to, it's more of a laughter at how absolutely absurd and shocking it is.
I mean,
really.
If you don't know, at the Oscars last night, Will Smith walked up on stage and slapped presenter Chris Rock across the face, and then walked back to his seat and yelled expletives at him for a joke that Chris Rock made about Jada Pinkett Smith.
Yeah.
That's that rundown.
Yeah.
And yes, to say it was shocking is an understatement, I think.
There is so much to unpack with the situation in terms of, just so many different levels. I think it's smart, like you were saying earlier today when we were preparing for this, Shayna, that we, in terms of literally Shayna and I looking at the situation, we have to just look at literally the situation, like what we saw, and not really dig too deep into backstory and reason and this and that. I think we know only what we saw and heard, and that I personally, of course, do not condone. And so that, I think, is what the focus for us anyway needs to be.
Yeah, I would say I'm still upset about it. And from my standpoint, I really looked at it as a filmmaker myself, and surrounded by peers and people who are also filmmakers. We look at the Academy Awards as the top honor, the most respected, the place that you want to be. That honor has to be immense. And so when that happened, it just felt like it took away so much from every single person, not only in that room who deserved awards, but everybody watching. It became a mockery of an amazing show, an amazing award show. And that's where I take it personally. I just think, how could you have the intention to not only just walk on stage and assault somebody, but then to continue on and go up on stage and win an award and be so, like, I understand his apology. He didn't apologize to Chris Rock. He didn't apologize to the person that he assaulted. And it turns into being something that is justified because he's protecting his family, or love makes you do crazy things. Those are things that are not okay to say. And I'm still like, about it, because I cannot believe that it was on international television, viewed by children, viewed by everybody.
That was the word I was going to use, like quite literally everyone. Like, that's not really an exaggeration. And also looking at the situation there, he had time to think about what he was going to do, casually walking multiple steps up the stairs down toward Chris. That's why at first I was laughing at it, because I thought, this can't be real. This has to be a stage thing, which still felt off color. Like, really, it's not that funny anyway. Chris Rock's joke wasn't that funny. I can understand from a basic, again, me being completely separate from the situation, why you could be offended by this. At the same time, out of all of the jokes that were told all night long, that's the one that we're taking the most offense to. Granted, yeah, there is probably backstory between the three of them. I know there is,
and I have a problem with anyone justifying that kind of behavior, because you're sending a message to every young person, every person, quite frankly, who admires you or even watches you in anything, that it's okay to use violence in that way. And imagine if he had actually punched him and he fell down and was bleeding. I mean, then, but a slap is okay. It's just, I don't know, I'm still baffled. I'm just baffled. I cannot believe that was something that even happened.
I
in this
agree.
day and age of self-awareness.
Amidst all of the things that are going on also around the world, what we've all experienced the past couple of years, you know, a lot of people may go, well, this may be why he overreacted. And those are all justifications and excuses that, like you've been saying, Shana, at that stage, that literal level of the Academy Awards live broadcast show that everyone respects so highly. And I love it. And I'm so inspired every time I watch the Academy Awards, in spite of whether it's a good show or not, I'm always inspired. And that's kind of the whole point for, I think, everyone in the industry to watch the Oscars, is to be inspired and to feel happy for these people who have, you know, they're being awarded with the highest honor for the work that they've done and all the work they put in. One thing I did notice about myself is that when I saw it happen live, there I go, immediately laughing because I can't believe it happened. But once I got past the shock of, wow, it's real, I thought it was funny. I thought it was hysterical, like even after knowing it was real. And I feel bad that I felt that way. And I think there's something to say about that in terms of how men have been bred to react to situations like that. And I am no different. There's a, you know, a toxic masculinity inside of me. I like to think I have less than others, but it's there. And so if anything, you know, taking all of the personal stuff aside between Jada, Will, and Chris, we do have to look at how we respond to that situation in terms of what happened, and really consider, is this how we want to be living our lives, or at least responding to future situations like this? And for you, Shana, being a parent, you know, kids are watching this, and Will Smith is loved by millions of people, and suddenly he can, quote unquote, get away with doing that. I couldn't believe I threw my hands up in the air and I thought, oh no, I think I even said it out loud when he was awarded Best Actor. I'm laughing again because it's just so absurd. Because I was thinking, oh my God, what is he going to say? And then, like you said, he doesn't even apologize to Chris Rock, which really ultimately, that was the main person he should have apologized to.
Well, the bottom line is that it was a terrible incident, and it ruined not only his night of winning, but also everybody else's. And so I think from that, we should just segue into congratulations to all the winners last night.
Totally. Questlove's speech was wonderful, and his documentary I have not seen, but I've heard such wonderful things. I love Questlove. He's such a good-hearted, warm, wonderful person. That was the award that immediately happened afterwards. And then Kevin Costner's speech when he introduced the director nominees was awesome. Like, that was the whole reason I like watching the Academy Awards. But you're right, it was overshadowed.
Right. And CODA not only won Best Adapted Screenplay, but also it was the first streaming film to win Best Picture. So historic night, and what a wonderful message CODA is putting out there, to be overshadowed by something, you know, so absurd, as you said. Absolutely absurd.
Yeah. So I think best steps are to move on and move forward, and hopefully just allow the Chris, Jada, and Will situation to be resolved on their own personally, like it should have been.
And I hope that Will Smith does something with this that can show young people, not only young people, everybody, that he has remorse and that he's going to make amends in some way, to all of us watching something like that. Because it's, I just hope that he uses this in a good way and doesn't just ignore it and pretend it away. I hope that he does something.
I agree. All right. Well, yeah, those are the top headlines of the week. We do have really good news at the end of this. That we both think is happy, positive news. That's why we choose to do good news at the end, as opposed to starting off with, you know, a downbeat. Then again, like you're saying, Shana, there were so many upbeats. The show is actually pretty entertaining. And I'm so glad that CODA ended up winning. I chose that as my prediction. So there you go.
I didn't, but that's okay. I'm happy that it won, and it was obviously deserving. And now award season is over, so now we can get back to just, you know, regular
regular broadcasting. Yeah. Moving on to this week in ISA Insider, what do we have, Shannon? We have a couple articles that we wanted to talk about.
There's a really great article in CS Magazine that popped up called Writing Through the Lens of Fear. And you made a really good point before we started about how you interpreted that headline. So how did you interpret that headline? And then let's talk about actually unpack what the actual article is about, which is very interesting.
Yeah, really well written article. And Waco Lynn is the person that the article is talking about. I took it as writing it from a space personal as the writer fear, meaning you're attacking the material and your writing career from this place of fear. I'll do this briefly, but I mentioned it on my ISA webinar this past week, which we'll mention in a second. But where I watched a video blog from John Green. He wrote Fault in Our Stars, and he has these great little, short 3.5-minute videos on YouTube. And he was talking about how he used to write from a place of fear and anger and frustration, and he would use that as fuel. And then he eventually shifted his career more toward writing for reasons of love and other, people accepting the material for reasons of why he wanted to write in the first place, the messages and themes, and it worked better, even though the fear and frustration and anger worked for him at the early stages of his career. So it was interesting when I read the title of the headline. I'm like, oh, Writing Through the Lens of Fear. I wonder if this is what they're talking about, but it's not. I think really it's even better.
It is. And it's actually something that my writing mentor always talks about. One of the first, parts of character development is from the article. He's saying, with every project, despite the genre, the first question I ask myself is, what is the fear of this character? That's the emotional feel of the movie. I totally agree with.
Totally agree with it, because really it's just another term for what we all hear of, like emotional flaw, or some people call it the character's misbehavior or something. There's so many different terms for it, but ultimately that is what it is. It's rooted in some form of a fear. And
fear is such a driving force in any character. And really you can learn so much about the character if you figure out what the thing is that's, it drives their intention and their want and their need in the story. It's all, all of us we have so much fear. And if you're writing a realistic, grounded character, you base it on real people and what their emotions are, and a lot of it is fear and pain.
If you look at your own daily lives, we act and react within situations based on, more often than not, some level of unconscious fear that we learned when we were 4. That's the sad truth. But characters the same way. You're then looking at the scene that you're placing the character in and thinking, okay, how is this character going to be acting and reacting from some level of fear? And we don't necessarily have to take it from a literal negative standpoint. Fear is so relative. But shifting, I shouldn't say shifting, but arcing to one of my favorite parts of the article, he said, they say great memories are about great characters, but great movies are actually about great relationships. It's about the dynamic. You don't remember the character for themselves, but the character's dynamics with each other. Really well said. And it's talking about how you can't necessarily see or fully understand a character's fear unless there is something or someone to bounce it off of.
Right, how they relate to somebody else.
Yeah. Waco goes into, I hope I'm saying his name right, Waco, goes into, what bred some of that for him, experiences with losing his mom. Really great article. But shifting to, what's nice about these articles is that it's practical. Like you can use these as part of your own development. That then leads us to the next one.
Yes. So then another article in CS Magazine also is why the first 20 pages of your screenplay is so critical. So this is something that I also think not only, resonates with your writing just in general, but if you are entering contests, readers read so many scripts that it's easy to get, jaded or bogged down or tired. And that goes with anybody in the industry, who's reading scripts and trying to find a nugget within just a pile of scripts. So what they're saying is the first 20 pages, you have to make those pop, and you have to really set up a lot to get that reader to continue on, or else you'll lose them.
it's the foundation to so many things. And I, you know, my brain goes back to the Oscars and how every year I'm so inspired after I watch the Oscars. And Kevin Costner's speech was just so spot on in terms of why we do this. Whether you're a director, an actor, or photographer, writer, we have the ability to change people's lives, like quite literally change the audience's lives by way of, you know, creating our work. So we have to take that seriously when we're considering what we're then setting up in these first 10 to 20 pages of your story. If it's a feature, if it's a pilot, it's even less time, 5-10. And so there's a direct connection to the audience you have to make. And it's why it's a nice connection and bridge to the previous article about writing through this lens of fear. We have to see who this character is and what drives them to make the choices they're eventually going to make, because that's ultimately what the reader's going to remember. Yes, they're going to remember amazing visuals and interesting moments, lines of dialogue, maybe, but it's more about the dynamics of this character living within a particular world, eventually getting us to that magic page 20 mark. You don't necessarily have to live and die by that number, but that is usually in a feature when the real plot setup occurs. And so if you don't have proper character setup, if we haven't set this foundation of here's who you're dealing with in terms of this person that we're supposed to be rooting for in some way, before we get to the plot setup, we're just not going to feel the plot. And that's then going to lead the reader to think the second act just isn't going to deliver. A lot easier said than done.
It is. To me, the first 20 pages is the most fun to write, because I tend to outline after I get that first act down. I mean, I outline a little bit to get, you know, in the first act, like, okay, what's happened? But I try to let the character take me where they're taking me based on kind of the backstory and all the character work I've done. And so that by the time I get into the new world, which is essentially second and third act, I feel like I know that character. And so I love the first 20. Like, it's the most exciting for me, because then I'm not so plot heavy. I'm more character heavy. So that's my favorite part.
You know, lastly, as far as commenting on that article, read a lot of scripts. You as writers, and pay attention to how you feel within the first 20 pages, and you're going to be able to set yourself within the same experience that readers do when reading contests or an executive sitting on somebody's desk. It's the same experience. It's just they do it more often than you do, and so what do you have to do? You have to then do it just as often as they do. You know, that's at least a logical step.
So check out those articles along with many, many more on our ISA Insider page.
Personal news, what we're watching, ISA events, Twitter sphere, we're not even going to bother commenting on because the drama is quite obvious. It was blowing up last night, man. Holy cow. So what do we have here? You're watching something that I have not watched, and I probably should, and I feel guilty.
Yes. So my son was sick home last week, so I didn't get to watch at night normally what I sometimes like to try different things and watch things, or but since he was coughing, I didn't really get to do that. So I decided to watch something a little bit lighter, and I started watching the latest season of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I just love. And in this season, there's actually a surprise cameo. Well, it's not going to be a surprise because I'm going to tell you, but John Waters makes a cameo. And that just made me so happy. I don't know why.
Did he play himself?
Kind of. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, he didn't say I'm John Waters, but he's not dressed up as anything else. But I just love that show. And I love that it speaks about feminism and equality without shoving it down your throat. It's done in such a great way through comedy and observation. I just think it's so smart. It's such a fun show. And you're watching the world change through the characters through the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. Just really fun. I really like it.
I want to comment on how you were saying they do it so well through observation. It's commentary on the situation as opposed to let's just, dive in full force. Here's the theme. Boy, when shows do that right, it's just so great because it's kind of like hiding the veggies or hiding the vitamins. Yeah.
I love that phrase. Yeah, she, the main character, she does such a great job because you're actually watching the world change through her eyes And you get to see her sort of like the wheel turn and her make judgments and you know, like you're learning from her learning. It's just really well done. I just really love that show.
Character perspective, man. It's so important.
What are you watching?
So yeah, like I said last week, I had, I think, 6 nights to catch up and watch as many of the Best Picture nominees as I could. One of those nights I had a writing group that I had to host, and then I got done, I think, at like 9:30, so I wasn't able to watch a movie that late because I'm not much of a late nighter, but I did watch as many as I could. The only ones I didn't watch were Dune and Licorice Pizza, but kind of commenting a little bit on, like, West Side Story really was so wonderful, but bridging a little to our previous segment about the first, why the first 20 pages are so critical. The reason I didn't connect as much as I wanted to, in spite of, I thought all the performances were great. Ariana DeBose is awesome. She's just amazing.
Mhm.
But the moment when, and I'm really not giving anything away, if you don't know the story of West Side Story, it's basically Romeo and Juliet. But when they meet behind and / under the bleachers for the first time, this is at the dance, it was so easy, and I didn't get the sense that there was real love at first sight, and all of a sudden they're dancing and kissing, and I thought, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That was the only negative response I had to the whole thing. It was wonderful. Beside just everything was awesome to look at, and it was pretty. But that then sat with me for the rest of the movie and kept me a little disconnected, because the whole rest of the movie is about how they couldn't be together, how they were scared of doing this, and then the fights break out. And of course, it's a horribly depressing ending, but it stood out. Like, it was obvious to me. And the more you read these articles in the ISA Insider, the more you study screenwriting, the more you focus on reading other screenplays, you're going to.
I agree with you. I think that that's probably the moment for me where I didn't fall in love like they did, because I did not feel that connection between the two of them. And that did carry me also through. And I kind of put it aside, like, okay, I don't know, maybe I don't like Ansel Elgort, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, now that you're saying that, like, that is the thing that kept me from it being a total complete package. It was that moment. It felt too easy, and like you were writing like it was being made to the plot point, like, okay, we need to get to this point, instead of this lovely organic buildup to love at first sight. Yeah, it felt like he was already walking in knowing he was going to see her and fall in love.
I'm one of the biggest Steven Spielberg fans around. Absolutely love the guy. He's why I wanted to go into movies. I love everything he does. He's never really done a love story.
Yeah.
It showed in that scene.
And the rest, I mean, it was gorgeous, and the performances were amazing. And yeah, it was literally that moment.
I mean, it was nominated for an Academy Award, so I always try to pedal my way back a little bit. I mean, the rest of the movie was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty much everything I watched. I watched a little NCAA basketball. That was kind of cool. But we have a little bit of a contest deadline rundown here.
Right. So our ISA pilot pitch contest is open now. We're looking for 90-second video pitches. We are calling it a pilot pitch, but it is also open to features. We're just focusing more because the industry right now is looking for a lot of pilots. That is open until April 5th, and then we will have our virtual pitch panel on Thursday, May 19th. So check back on our event page. You can register now.
And absolutely pay attention to that, because there has been some really solid success stories coming out of those pitch panels. The people that are chosen to pitch, our team really, they spend time figuring out which ones should we, award, really, in a way, the opportunity to do this. That is going to be fun. In terms of other little events, so I recorded a webinar last week, how to impress contest judges. It's really more of a clickbait type of title, and I admit that. I focused mainly on the ways in which contests usually organize the categories in a contest. most contests. It's hard to speak for every single contest, but there are 10 different categories that are usually the ones that are used to judge your scripts. And I talked through every single one of them, but I also mentioned a little bit about the John Green inspiration thing. And so that webinar was live. It's going to be available for free on YouTube as of this moment of you watching this video. And it's also available on the pro tips page on the ISA website, but it will not be available within 2 weeks from now. To basic or / free members, Connect members will have access to it all the time. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching this probably through our YouTube channel, you should just be subscribing, totally free. Our website doesn't have a notification system when new videos are uploaded. So you have to manually go in and check. I think in the future, we might, add this option of some kind, but YouTube, if you subscribe to a channel, it sends you a notification saying this website, this video was just uploaded. So subscribe to it, it's free, and you get notifications as to when we have new videos.
And this one, I mean, we're on our 4th episode now. We're just getting started.
I know, lots more to come.
Speaking of YouTube,
yeah,
we're gonna pull our viewer mail segment from YouTube.
What do we have here? So Ryan from Film Riot addresses this question. What is it?
So the question was, how do you get out of a creative rut? And Ryan had a lovely answer about specifically sort of getting out of that creative rut after you've been pitching, after you've been putting your stuff out there and getting rejections after rejections. So, I mean, I can certainly relate to that, just rejection after rejection after rejection. And Max can too, so we're gonna be real. For me, there's 2 things that I do to get out of a creative rut. One, I allow myself to have a pity party. I allow myself to have the poor me moments and just get out whatever it is that I'm feeling. If I'm angry or if I'm sad or whatever, I just allow myself to do it. I'm like, all right, here's my pity party. Let's go. Dump it. Then, as my kid's one of his favorite books says about superheroes, you get up and get on with your day. And then you figure out what positive you can take from that, or I do. I take whatever positive I can from that rejection or that meeting in general. And I use it as a fire to just keep going, because it's what me and my partner always say, my writing partner, is we always say, well, it's one rejection closer to good news. So it's like, we're almost like, all right, one more rejection in the pile, because now we're closer to the yes. And then we drink.
It's right. And then you go out and party. Totally. I mean, when I wrote my book years ago, and I'm working on the sequel now, I reached out to, I used to have an exact number. It wasn't quite 30, but it was almost 30 agents. Got rejected by all of them. And that was over a process of a while. It was like 3 months, it takes a while for them to get back to you. And I had barely started my writing career. I've barely started my writing career now, but it made me see that there was an unconscious need to continue to be creative. Like some people are born with that. Some people just have that want of this kind of understanding of an answer based on the question of, why are we doing this in the first place? And if you immediately go to, I want to make money off of it, or I want to sell something, or I need to, pay off some bills or something, very few of you are thinking that way, but nonetheless, that's the wrong way to go about it. Artwork in general, you have to do it because you just enjoy doing it. And so in order to get out of a creative rut, don't get one in one in the first place. That's a horrible thing to say. No, I think you nailed it, Shane. I don't know how else to add to that, other than just kind of going to this question of, why am I doing this? And if you can get down to a baseline answer of, it's just because I enjoy it, then you're going to be able to find your way out of the frustrations and anger, because it's just something you like to do. If you don't like to do it, you got to figure out how, go do something else.
Right. That's what they say. You don't like it enough to do it, you get rejection after rejection, don't do it, because that's pretty much the majority of what you're going to get. If you do want to see more of what Ryan from Film Riot says, how he gets out, you can go check that out. I'm sure Scott will put the link on here. And thank you, Film Riot, for putting that question up so we could answer it also.
Yeah, Film Riot is awesome. It just a thought occurred to me. You should absolutely follow Film Riot. They're excellent. It reminded me really quickly of, I was a runner for most of my life, track, cross country. And there came a moment, I don't know if any of you watching this were an athlete in any sport, but it's a pretty good example in comparison to the arts, ironically, because like the difference with the arts is that it isn't physically difficult, so there's an ease to just sitting and doing, like, the physical act of doing it. There are a whole other level, other pieces and layers to why it's difficult. But with sports and athletics, it's really hard. Like cross country is something that I stopped doing because I had a moment of realization of, I am literally kicking my own ass every day and it hurts. And then I thought, why am I doing this? I don't love this. And so I stopped. And it was a tough decision because I came from a running family and it was something that I was good at. But I just was like, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why I'm continuing to quite literally kill myself. And so that's where we need to come, when you're in a creative rut. I'm sorry, I'm rambling on this because it's a big subject, because you're always going to be finding ruts throughout your whole career. I don't care if you're 21 or 81. You're going to get rejections constantly, but accepting that they will occur can help prepare you for how to deal with it. Otherwise, you're just going to fall into that depression. I just wanted to throw that out there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think that everything that you said. Ditto.
All right. Good. Let's finish this off with good news of the week. What do we have here?
Okay, so after the chaos and craziness of what just happened, where do we tend to go to for good news? Animals. So I was searching for good animal news because we all love cute animals. And this one popped up and I was just like, how is this not out there so much? So there's an article up that we'll link here, but it said that Indonesia has reported the birth of a Sumatran rhinoceros in a captive breeding program targeted to save the critically endangered species from extinction. Born on March 24th, the new calf is the first child of captive rhino Rosa at the Way Kambas Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary. And this new captive birth of a Sumatran rhino has rekindled hopes among experts and officials for more newborns in the future. So yay!
There are good people doing wonderful things, and we should seek out that news. I think that's one of the reasons we do this good news segment. Don't just rely on us to be providing you one little piece of good news on a weekly basis, because there's a ton out there, and we're just so inundated with all of the scary stuff that's going on. And I think it's really happy to hear that there are people out there who have noticed that this is a problem and they're trying to solve it. And hopefully it continues to be solved and then resolved, and things happen. If you click on the link, I mean, these rhinos are oddly enough adorable because they're huge, scary animals, but really cute.
I know, it made me happy. I was like, yay, rhinos.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's our good news of the week. And I mean, what are we going to talk about next week when there's no awards? We're going to have to really, really figure it out.
Yeah, we're going to have to get into back to the basics in a way. I mean, it's been fun talking about awards. It's been fun catching up on all these movies. I'm glad that I decided I need to watch a movie a night. I think it's a good idea for everyone out there who is in this industry. If you're trying to write for TV, if you're trying to write for movies, be up to date on what's out there and read the trades, read the ISA Insider, and just, stay tuned, and we'll be here to pinpoint and focus on the main ones.
Yep. And have a great week, everybody. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.